Who's your most consistent seller among the ladies? Can I guess?
Definitely Alexa Bliss.
Yeah, that was my
She,
guess.
I, I joke with WWE that she's my John Cena, because like for the longest time when John was an active weekly wrestler, he was doing like half of the merch sales.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Comics Cube. Today I am with Rob Schamberger. Did I say that name right?
You did, thank you.
Awesome. So, Rob Schamberger, you are known for doing paintings of WWE superstars.
Yes.
And when I asked you for this interview, you said very clearly you are not available on Monday nights, Wednesday nights, and Friday nights.
Correct.
And let me guess why. Watch the shows
There-
live.
Yeah, there's the shows on. Like WWE calls me their artist in residence, and I knew of that term, but I didn't know everything about it. And it was actually a recent book by Brad Meltzer. I forget the name of it offhand. It was his last fiction book, but the main character there was a artist in residence for the military. And he goes into depth on why the military uses one. It's because an artist can look at things differently than even a photographer or a videographer can. And that's actually one of the early ways that the military found out about PTSD, was the way that their artists would portray things. So I started really looking at what I was doing with WWE and looking at, like trying to portray not just what things look like, but the feeling of what it is to watch it. So I want to have that same live experience that the audience is, so that I can connect with the audience on a really true basis.
How does one get the gig, the very specific gig of being the WWE's artist in residence?
It was a real roundabout way. They'd never had one before me, and I'm still the only one. I was doing wrestling art on my own for about a year before. I was for a long time trying to be a comic book artist and writer, and had some success, but never like quit your day job success. And it hit me like no one is doing fine art of pro wrestling. So I'm like, oh, wow, no one's doing this. This is a way I can stand out. I have a passion for wrestling. I have a huge passion for art. And I figured there must be other people like me out there. There's got to be a market for this. And so I did a Kickstarter for a project I'm actually still working on 7-8 years later, where I'm painting all the world champions from all the promotions going back to George Hackenschmidt in 1905 up to now. And I did $20,000 on that, and that put me on the map. And a lot of people, especially at WWE, started paying attention. And then I would travel with that exhibit to different types of wrestling themed shows. And I was at a wrestling museum, and I met Jim Ross and Jerry Briscoe there. Briscoe brothers, and we stayed in touch. And about a year later, Jim Ross made the call for me to Triple H's office and said, we should be working with this guy. And it really started going from there.
Jim Ross is known for good decisions in hiring talent.
Yeah, only one lapse with me. But yeah, he brought in Stone Cold, The Rock, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Trish Stratus, and this guy.
Oh, you mean some of the greatest of all time?
Yeah, and me.
Well, technically, you're their greatest artist in residence of all time.
Well, I like the way you think.
So when did you become a wrestling fan? Since childhood?
I didn't grow up on it. Had a single mother and one TV, and I think like Murder She Wrote was on at the same time wrestling was, so I didn't get to watch it. And it was when my mom remarried, and I was 18, and I was over at their house doing laundry like every 18-year-old does, and my stepfather was a fan back in the 70s. And my cat's trying to make a cameo here. They
It's okay. People love cats.
Yes. They were flipping through the channels and landed on Ric Flair doing a promo in WCW. This would have been like 98. Yeah, 98. And I was just like, boom, I get this, and not knowing about wrestling really. I didn't know there were two shows going on. So like the next week I just wanted to find wrestling, and landed on Raw instead. And yeah, they had me hooked. Watched every week since.
Which one did you watch more?
Oh, Raw for sure. Nitro just wasn't my thing. Also, by then they were past their prime, and a lot of the really crazy goofiness was still happening on Raw. Like Big Show getting dragged around at his father's funeral off the back of the Blues Brothers mobile, or Mae Young giving birth to a rubber hand, things like that. But like at first, it was that ludicrous stuff that got my attention, but it was Edge and Christian and the Hardys and Jericho, and soon the Dudleys came in. That kind of stuff really is where I started gaining an appreciation for like the art of pro wrestling, and what they were able to do, and then things just continued to grow from there.
That's a great year, the year of Edge and Christian and the Hardys and the Dudleys.
Oh, wasn't it? Oh, fantastic stuff.
Just
Probably,
great stuff, top to bottom.
Among the top in tag team wrestling history.
Yeah, and just some of the most exciting stuff. And okay, and then when did you start painting them?
That was, well, I was working on a pro wrestling graphic novel for a few years, that I did mini comics around town here, and I think it was online at one point. But through that, I started really doing a deep dive into wrestling and all aspects of it. So I did, certain paintings here and there with, in addition to doing the graphic novel. But then I just kind of had that moment where I realized I'm never going to be someone that does comic books full time. I just, my skill level and the stuff that I was interested in making just wasn't there to get a sustainable audience to, again, quit the day job. And so I was kind of at an emotional low point because I'd been wanting to make comics since I was 7 when I got my first one. And so then, I had that aha moment, which was about 8 years ago, when I was like, oh, I take a full fine art approach to pro wrestling.
How'd you come up with that style? It's a very distinct style.
Again, it's the roots in comic books. Also, a lot of studying of current fine art and street art. A lot of that, and then deep dives back into various histories of illustration. I spend about half an hour every morning just looking at other people's art because it's all problem solving. I want to see like what colors they used, what different types of putting elements together that I can bring back to my own approach. I'm based in Kansas City, and when I was in high school was when both Jim Mahfood and Mike Huddleston were going to the Kansas City Art Institute. And so both of them were big influences on me, because I got to, meet them at the shows. And I saw like Mike early on was just, pushing things everywhere. And then following Mahfood's career, he kept experimenting and bringing things back to his core style. And I'm like, you know, I would love to think like that too, you know, looking at the stuff that like Bill Sienkiewicz or David Mack do, and you know, how they continue to experiment and try totally different mediums and then bringing it again back to their core style. So really it's just through constant experimentation, for the short part of the answer.
Which comic book artists did you love growing up?
Growing up, you know, like early on, it would have been like Steve Lytle, another fellow Kansas City guy, was doing a lot of covers for like especially the classic X-Men comics, and he would, you know, like do interior illustrations on that. So also around that time was like the later part of where they were reprinting John Byrne's X-Men work, which was fantastic. And then yeah, like quickly, like my mom at some like book sale got me this book that had all these classic masters of comic book art, so like Alex Toth and Kirby and Bernie Krigstein, those kind of guys, you know, really studying what they did and looking at how it influenced the people that I was into now, and then, you know, further studying and looking at what influenced them. You know, like so much of the American illustration medium like owes a lot to Milt Caniff and oh shoot, I'm blanking on his name that did Flash Gordon. I'm so sorry,
Alex
everyone.
Raymond.
Yes. The two of them pretty much, you know, you can even look at Jack Kirby. He owes so much to both of them. And then also like Frank Robbins, big fan of his work as well.
And
And Mike Mignola, you know, like now, like, you know, around that age, you know, like getting into his stuff. Of course, I was into like all the Image Founder stuff. That, you know, that was all really cool. And some of it I outgrew, some of it I didn't, but there's still that punk rock energy that so many of those guys had that I try to bring to what I do as well.
yeah, I swear, sometimes Todd McFarlane will post a sketch, and I'm just like, I wish you drew more comics, man.
Yes,
I
yeah,
still love the way you draw, but
yeah. And Jim Lee, the same. You know,
mhm.
these charity sketches he's been doing lately are just amazing.
Yeah, those two really like have not, like, you know, they're still as big. Like,
Yeah,
you get the
and I got to
feeling that
meet
if yeah,
got to meet Wills Portacio a few years ago and like thank him in person. Like his stuff on X Factor and Uncanny X-Men especially just still blow me away. And you know, like some of the other earlier work that he did before that, like on Strike Force Morituri, love that stuff.
I'll tell you something. Wills Portacio was, you know, he's big, but
Yeah,
here he's really big.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. He inspired a
Does he still
whole
teach
lot of
there?
people. No, not anymore. He doesn't live here anymore. But
Okay. Okay.
yeah, he inspired a whole lot of local people to get into comics, and
Good.
that's, you know. All right. You mentioned that Roman Reigns is your biggest seller.
At times, yeah, for sure. Not currently. Overall, like normally my best sellers are the female wrestlers, but there are definitely times where Roman is selling hot for me.
Okay. So let's say we'll get back to the female wrestlers in a bit,
Yeah.
but let's say Roman Reigns. So what do you think that says about audience reaction and everything? Considering, you know, Roman gets booed a lot, but then here you are saying that he sells a lot too.
Right. It shows that the crowd cares, right? If they're just sitting there and not really having any reaction, I can guarantee that that translates to sales as well. that there aren't many, so like really the only one that has like consistently high reactions that I have a hard time selling is John Cena, amazingly, right? Like, because he's overall like the merch seller. But John and I had a discussion about it once, and he was like, the people that are into me are not the people that are into what you're doing. And the people that are into what you're doing don't like me at all. So it's that it's that weird like Venn diagram where for the most part, occasionally I'll sell some, but like my one T-shirt of John Cena is definitely John Cena's lowest selling T-shirt.
That's funny because Roman Reigns has been criticized as being the next John Cena, but that kind of proves that they don't have the same audience.
Correct. And yeah, definitely there's a different presentation for both of them. And with Roman, like, the appearance is so different. So there's a lot of different things where I can push it where maybe I couldn't with John. I say a lot like if you're drawing Superman, you're drawing Superman. But if you're drawing Batman, you can do whatever. And it's kind of that same thing there. John Cena, they even jokingly call him Superman a lot, or Super Cena. John, I would take a very similar approach as if I were doing Superman. Roman, a lot of the aesthetic around him, I can push it in a lot different directions. Like not as extreme as say the Fiend Bray Wyatt or the Undertaker, but there's definitely more room for me to play with. Like my latest one of him even was a nod to Frank Miller's 300, where I had him against this really intense cloudy background and dozens of other wrestlers rushing at him and him standing alone. Like something like that wouldn't work with Cena, but with Roman, I can go there.
Yeah, I feel like there's only a handful of Cena poses and things and approaches that you could do.
Yeah, and now that he's gotten to this place where he is living pop culture, I can push it a little bit further now. I can go into some of those other things where I couldn't. Like my latest one with John Cena is actually pretty fun. It's him doing the "You Can't See Me" thing, and I went full surrealist with it, and everything is realistically rendered, but there's just a blank white spot for his face. Like literally, you can't see him. So like things like that are fun to do, and that one is actually probably my better selling print of him.
You went full Magritte on that one.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, "This is not a pipe." That was my direct inspiration on that. Thank you.
Really?
Yes, it was.
Awesome. So so you mentioned the female wrestlers, and you say you started on this journey around 8 years ago. So that would be around 2012.
Right.
And in the middle of that, you saw the women's revolution.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel watching that, both as a fan and as somebody who was drawing them? Like
I was so
opportunity?
excited.
Yeah.
So excited. Like back when I was working on that graphic novel, one of the big books that I read that helped me get my mind inside the business was a history of Mildred Burke, the first ever women's champion for, I think it was the NWA, or might have even been before they had like women sanctioned under the NWA. But anyway, she at several points was an equal or greater draw than Lou Thesz, the world's champion at the time. And she did it by having very athletic matches while also being a physical specimen. The same way that the male wrestlers are portrayed. And I was really desperately wanting that in WWE. TNA had that amazing period of time with the Knockouts division. And also I'm friends with a lot of independent wrestlers and female wrestlers included that had kind of aged out of when WWE would sign a talent. And it was because there was that period of time where female wrestlers that looked like them and worked like them weren't so much being brought in. And seeing at first when they started coming into developmental FCW and later NXT, and then when there was that big moment where they were brought in, and then everything that kept building on top of that, it was very meaningful. The fans were definitely voting with their dollars on that, and still are. If I put out a new Alexa Bliss print, it's guaranteed to sell. Becky Lynch the same way, and just so many, all of them really now, all of them, and the Evolution pay-per-view, main eventing WrestleMania, and everything that we're continuing to see. The depth of the NXT women's roster right now is tremendous. Like it's the best outside of any of the all-female promotions like
Shimmer.
Shine or Shimmer, yeah. And then of course the Japanese talent that's coming in, Asuka, Kairi, and Io Shirai, which with the way they present themselves just give me so much to work with. Asuka especially, like just genius, and like she's one of those where it's exciting for me to do a painting because I can push it so far and it still resonates with the audience, which means that that's what she's doing in the ring as well.
Asuka stepped right out of a comic book.
Oh, tremendous. Like again, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting his name, the artist that did like Vampire Hunter D, Amano, Yoshitaka
Okay.
Amano. She looks like one of his illustrations. It's just amazing. Yeah.
Who's your most consistent seller among the ladies? Can I
Definitely
guess?
Alexa Bliss.
Yeah, that was my guess.
I joke with WWE that she's my John Cena, because like for the longest time when John was an active weekly wrestler, he was doing like half of the merch sales. Alexa is definitely that, especially whenever I have one of the signed prints of her. It's guaranteed to sell out in oftentimes minutes. It's amazing the way the fans are connected with her.
I'm surprised it's not Becky Lynch.
Definitely at times, and at the height of the Becky Lynch the Man, she was definitely consistent for me. But yeah, I don't know. There's some sort of X factor with Alexa, and maybe the way that I paint her. In addition to that the fans are just really into.
So you have done interiors though, interiors of comics, because the
Yeah.
way I discovered your work was on that WWE Then Now Forever issue,
Oh, great.
featuring my favorite female wrestler, Sasha Banks.
Yes. That one was really cool, and she's very private, and like her creativity is out there in the ring. But I've become really good friends with her husband, Sarat, and so I got to kind of go over the story of that with him, and everything that she's talked about with him, and then portraying that in that way and doing a fully painted comic. The kind of stuff where like first time I saw Alex Ross on Marvels and Kingdom Come, I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to do something like this someday. And then being able to bring that with my passion for wrestling into that comic, and did a couple covers for them as well. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, the way for me, the page was her doing the frog splash at WrestleMania, and then you also painted Eddie Guerrero.
Yes. Yeah. They actually told me that like she got choked up seeing that, and I've heard that too from younger fans that are watching wrestling now. I've had several young girls say, "Was that me that you painted there?" Like genuine question, because it was the story for anyone that hasn't seen it is Sasha is a young girl seeing Eddie Guerrero wrestle and saying, "I want to do this," and then you follow her journey up to WrestleMania 32 in Dallas when she's doing the frog splash and that triple threat with Charlotte and Becky Lynch, and there's Eddie's spirit overlooking her, and then the final panel is a young girl in the front row saying, "I want to do that." Yeah, I've had several say like that was exactly me, and so yeah, the future of wrestling is really exciting.
I'm gonna ask a question, and I might edit this out if the answer is telling of something of the audience. But
Sure.
when you say that Alexa Bliss and the girls are your best sellers,
Uh-huh.
who's buying them?
It's everyone. It
Okay.
really is. And I don't get any kind of skeevy vibes, if that was kind of what you were
That's
asking.
exactly what I was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more like the people that are appreciating the characters, their athleticism, connecting with it in a special way. I do, especially on my female talent, have a very large female buying audience,
It's awesome.
like higher than the normal. Like it's about 50-50 for men and women on who's buying my work, and but there is a little bit more on the women just because it's something that I think they identify with a little more. A lot of different ways, see themselves on screen in different ways. So yeah, it's not a cop out answer. It really is everyone.
Is it does the age range skew younger as well?
um I think the younger ladies are definitely more passionate about it,
Mhm.
more vocal for sure, because it's something that they're really into and possibly even aspiring to do someday. So there definitely is that. Like I had one really awesome gal that she really wanted a signed print, and her mom and grandma told her, okay, if you have all A's for this quarter, we'll get you like 3 or 4 signed prints. And she did. She went and got like all A's, and her mom and grandma told me about that, so I threw a couple extra ones in there for her too.
Uh, so you sometimes you go to the shows, right? And you hang out with these guys.
Yeah, about once a month.
How
Well, pre-pandemic.
how does that feel?
It was really intimidating at first, mostly because I had done so much research into the world of pro wrestling. I didn't want to break any kind of protocol or etiquette. Also, I was approaching this that it's more a client or business meeting than like, oh wow, there's Randy Orton. You know, like inside I'm like, wow, cool, I'm sitting here having a conversation with Randy Orton. But I don't want to present myself that way, because they definitely can sniff that out immediately if someone is just a mark, a fan. You know, like I really am. I appreciate everything they do. I'm celebrating it with my work. But at the end of the day, this is how I pay my bills, so I have to be a professional about it.
And so safe to say that inside, at least, you still get starstruck.
Occasionally,
Yeah.
like when Matt and Jeff Hardy came back, because they were early favorites of mine. And then like Jeff and I did a painting together. So like when we were doing that, my wife was filming it, and she was behind Jeff at one point and just mouthed out, "This is awesome." So like, yeah, occasionally running into the people like that had made me be fans, or be a fan at first. That it was a bit of a starstruck moment, but even then it was like, okay, hold that in until I can call my wife afterwards, or when we're in the car driving home. You know, like pretty soon I'm, you know, like becoming friends with Devon, and we're sharing jokes back and forth, or Edge and I have become pals. You know, like those kind of things are. I definitely don't take it for granted, but also I don't let it, you know, dictate the whole experience.
Okay. So here's my next question. The uh, you read the dirt sheets, I'm sure.
I need
Or
to, yeah, just
or
so
used
like,
to.
especially on social, if someone makes some sort of insider joke, I'm not like giving the wrong response that makes me look like I'm carrying on what they're saying. But yeah.
Yeah, like how much of the dirt sheets just don't show us what's going on in the back?
Um, let's see. I'm a my favorite TV show ever is Babylon 5. I'm a huge fan of it, and one of the aliens in there has a saying that the truth is a three-edged sword. There's my side, your side, and what actually happened, the truth. And at most, they're getting only two sides of it. But even then, a lot of times it's skewed. Like people will feed information to them for other purposes, and there's not a lot of like double sourcing. Probably like the person that does the most, that has like the most journalistic integrity would be Mike Johnson with PW Insider. He really puts the work in. He definitely will do like a minimum of two sources for a story, and has direct lines with WWE PR and other companies. But for the most part, it's a lot of rumor mongering. There have been a lot of times where I was like sitting there for things that were being reported about, and it's completely wrong. And other times I've been there and a story gets reported and I'm like, oh, I know who leaked this and why, to get a certain type of coverage. So yeah, definitely take it all with a grain of salt, or maybe a whole salt shaker.
Who's your favorite wrestler, like ever?
Ever? Boy. And it gets hard when you know all these people,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, so how about from before you started getting to know them?
Yeah, like especially when I was doing the researching of things, Bruiser Brody. I was just there. The whole thing about him, the maverick nature, the way that he really approached it as a business, those kind of things I really appreciate, and then just the intensity of what he did in the ring. On top of that, huge fan of. And then of people currently working today, there's a rightful reverence to Brock Lesnar. Like it's fun sometimes in catering. I'll be sitting. One time I was sitting with several people that had been in the ring with him, and like hearing them tell stories about what that was like. And it was almost like they were becoming fans again, but people that have been in the business for a decade plus. There's just like he is one of those once in a generation athletes, the same way like Michael Jordan is. There's definitely something to appreciate there. And then definitely the same with Charlotte Flair. There's something really special about her, and she's one of the absolute sweetest human beings I've ever encountered. Her and Natalia, and sorry to break the character, Nia Jax, all just really wonderful people. Like a couple of years ago, our old cat passed away, and they were like contacting me and my wife to make sure we were okay. That kind of thing goes a long way.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think over time, like because she's been there so much, people don't appreciate how freaking good Natalia is. I think that whenever she decides to transition to another thing other than in-ring competition, people will really do like a retrospective on her career and just see how freaking good she is. And that's with people not even knowing how much she does behind the scenes, especially for the women's division. I think with time, people will start to recognize her as one of those greatest of all times.
I'm sure. I mean, she's wrestling royalty, right? So.
Oh yeah, and
so is Charlotte Flair.
Yeah, and equals or exceeds at times the people that came before her. Yeah, she's fantastic.
But who is your favorite to paint?
Favorite to paint? Again, it's those ones where I can really push it. So The Fiend Bray Wyatt, I just did a recent one with him that was comic book illustration influenced, that I was really happy with. I have one coming out in the next week of Asuka done the same way. So both of them for sure. I'm huge fans of painting.
Saying people like The Undertaker.
Yes, Undertaker as well. Finn Balor with the demon stuff. I was able to really have fun with that, especially like playing around with the way it was kind of influenced by Venom and Carnage and the symbiotes, having fun with that. Yeah, for sure.
Do you have a particular favorite Undertaker persona?
Boy, probably that period when he came back after the biker era. He was just putting a lot of different elements together and then bringing that supernatural aspect back. That was a ton of fun to watch.
Yeah. Do you believe he's retired?
I've heard a saying amongst the wrestlers is that you don't retire, you just outprice how much people are willing to pay for you to come back. So it's a matter of how much Vince is willing to pay.
Well, because I mean, Sean retired, and I was like, every year I was like, oh no, Sean's coming back, Sean's coming back, Sean's coming back, and then he didn't, and then I finally gave up, and then he came back.
Yeah. I would feel like Taker would want to do one more thing in front of a crowd whenever that's able to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never even had a conversation with him, so I don't have any insider knowledge on this. It's just kind of a hopeful feeling.
Yeah. So walk me through your process, because again, it's a very distinct style, and you just want to know what the technical process behind it is.
Yeah, I start by referencing either photographs or video stills, and get all the likenesses down at that stage, and then I kind of liken it to like playing jazz, where I have a hopeful idea of where I'm going to end up, but especially the majority of my stuff is done with watercolor. And with watercolor, you're always just hoping for the best. It's water. It does crazy things. There, like I just kind of embrace all the happy accidents that happen, but also through repetition, I kind of can control what kind of effect that I want to happen and where. And so with the watercolor, I work from light to dark, because you can't really lighten things up with watercolor. And also warm to cool colors, and build up my layers there. I work real wet, so sometimes I'll work on several paintings at a time. I had read in a old Wizard magazine that Alex Ross did that, so I've always had it in the back of my head, right? Like, I'm not getting paid to watch paint dry, and if I like, but other times my brain is only kind of able to handle one at a time, so it changes there. And then going back to my comic book illustration roots, I'll finish it up with ink. I work with a brush primarily. Have kind of reintroduced technical pens into it, but I really prefer working with a brush. It's just sometimes with like a straight line or a perfect curve, I'll use a pen just to kind of guideline things out. And then other times I'll do like a more mixed media approach, where I'll incorporate like spray paint or acrylic paint, or splattering things around. Or like also been studying a lot of like 80s era Mobius, and the way he would do color hatching, like a lot of the feathering that you see with ink, he was doing with color. So I've started playing around with that, like doing a base few layers of watercolor, and then coming in with acrylic paint and doing the hatching that way. Just kind of whatever feels right for each piece and each subject as well.
Any plans of doing more interiors?
Maybe. I feel like Boom Studios lost my phone number. I don't know what happened there. I think there was a change in editorial. I don't know. I'm obviously staying busy, but also again, like growing up, when I was there for like the formation of Image Comics and the reasoning for that, which was owning their work. And I have a really amazing relationship with WWE where I actually own all my work, and they license it from me to be used elsewhere. And a lot of the comic publishers don't love that.
Mm.
That might also have been why they lost my number. I don't know. But I was able to arrange it so that, yeah, I actually own that story. Yeah, if the right opportunity presents itself. Also, like with my paintings, there's a lot of passive revenue streams that aren't necessarily there with comics. Like with the painting, I can sell the original painting, but then also all the different usages of it, the prints, the shirts. Had my work used with action figures. There's an upcoming Ultimate Warrior figure that'll have my art on the jacket. A lot of different things like that where I'm able to continue to earn off of it. Isn't necessarily there with comics, but also if Brian Bendis came to me and said, Rob, I really want to see your approach on Legion of Superheroes, I'm like, Brian, I'm here for you.
You want to say that louder into the camera.
Brian, I'm here for you.
No, I'm gonna crop out that clip and put it on Brian Bendis's page.
That's the whole episode, right? And it's been fun. Like I've kind of built up a relationship with Mike Oming and David Mack, and so maybe someday I'll get to do something with Brian. Back in my comic book days, when my first series was, well, it was only one issue, but was announced from Image Comics. I was at the Chicago Comic-Con where that was announced, and I went up to Brian because he was such an influence on me. It was right around the time he started with Marvel. I think it was still Marvel Knights era for him, but it was the earlier indie stuff that I just loved so much, all the crime comics. And I went up to him and told him, and Brian's advice had nothing to do with the work. He didn't give me a critique or anything. It was telling me how to market it, how to use that project to get the next project and the one after that. And that's advice I still use today. So yeah, I have a fondness for Brian for sure.
You ever like look at your life right now and see how, like, you ever think that this is what your life would be like? You're painting wrestlers for a living. You're Brian Bendis, Edge.
It's definitely, again, I don't take it for granted at all. I always hoped for success, right? Like I didn't get into this just to do it as a hobby. Like I always viewed this as being my living. And but the quality of life that I have through this, and that it is, again, doing these paintings of wrestling and working with WWE and having such a I'm not just saying this, like a tremendous relationship with them. Yeah, it's definitely occasionally I'll have to like stop and look at everything and appreciate it, and then I get back to work.
So there have been questions, and I've seen you answer them on Twitter. So I'll let you say it here.
Sure.
Is there any hope? And I know the answer to this. Is there any hope of you painting wrestlers from another promotion?
There are certain ones where I already do.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I'm not exclusive to WWE, but the amount of work and the opportunity that they give me essentially keeps me exclusive. Also, they're the ones that brought me to the party, so I'm going to dance with them. They have a loyalty to me. There's things on the horizon that are groundbreaking that we're going to be doing together. So I don't see a reason to not remain faithful and loyal to them. Yeah. Also, like, you know, we're specifically saying AEW, they haven't reached out to me through third parties. You know, they've, you know, just put out feelers, and I'm like, guys, right now, I don't have anything that is worth taking the risk on. And I don't even think that WWE would get that upset. Although on their very first actual AEW broadcast, the thing that was after All In, whatever that was, I don't know. When they were doing the hype video for Cody and Dustin, and they like spotlighted a painting that I had done for Dustin of him and Cody and Dusty all together, and kind of like focused on it, used it as a part of the promo. And I'm like, guys, come on. Like, yes, this is on Dustin's wall. Yes, it's a very personal thing and it ties into what they're doing. But I was at Raw the following Monday, and I had to run around to all the executives and be like, guys, I didn't know about this. I
Wow.
am faithful to you guys. So like, I didn't love that, you know, but also I've got a lot of friends that are working there, both behind the scenes and in front of the camera. You know, several people that have recently left WWE, the FTR and Matt Cardona especially. I was always friendly with Cody and Brandy as well, and several other people there that, you know, I have a long working relationship with. So, you know, I wish the best for them. I want them to succeed. I want different genres of pro wrestling, the same way that, you know, like my favorite comics right now are like what Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips are doing with Criminal and the upcoming Reckless stuff, compared to superheroes or compared to supernatural stuff, right? Like there's different genres within comics. I feel like AEW is a different way, a different genre within the art form of pro wrestling. So yeah, I want success for them, but yeah, WWE brought me to the party, and they're who I'm dancing with.
Just like the Undertaker.
Yeah.
So
If I have that kind of longevity and success as Undertaker, I'm doing great. Yeah.
you're gonna have to change your style like 5 times.
You know, and I continue to evolve. If you look
Yeah.
at what I was doing 7 years ago compared to now, I don't know if it's as dramatic as, you know, Dead Man to American Badass, but I'm working at it.
You mentioned things that you're working on that are going to be groundbreaking with WWE. Are you at liberty to talk about them?
No, it's still in the works, but imminent. That's about all I can say.
So everybody follow Rob's Twitter.
Yes.
I'm going to put a little name tag where you are so people can follow your Twitter. So you mind if I close this off? And I mean, you saw my Greg Rucka interview. You know how I'm going to close it off. So by naming some wrestlers, and you just give me like a 1-sentence answer as to what they're like if you know them, and if you don't personally know them, what you think of them.
Great. They're all jerks.
Edge.
Wonderful human being.
Daniel Bryan.
A massive passion for pro wrestling.
Seth Rollins.
Leader in the making.
In the making.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You know, it's just because he's still comparatively young, right? Like at the when I first came in, Cena and JBL especially were still there, and Big Show and Mark Henry, and they would hold court, and because they had been with the company so long and in pro wrestling for so long. I think that once Rollins is to that stage, he'll be in the same role.
Would you say Roman Reigns has already been in that role?
I'd say he's on the same path as Rollins.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind
Becky
of like
Lynch.
Cena and Orton at the same time, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh, Randy Orton.
Loves Game of Thrones. I've had my wife and I have had long conversations with him about Game of Thrones. It's fantastic. Like he got a little teary-eyed when we were talking about the last episode. It was cool. Don't expect it, right?
Don't expect it at all. I mean, I just
Yeah.
named Seth Rollins. I would thought he would have been the Game of Thrones guy.
Oh, he is. I just haven't had the opportunity to talk about that with him. You know, we have other subjects.
Becky Lynch.
Another massive passion for pro wrestling and for creativity as a whole.
Did you ever expect it?
For you know, like when she had the whole steampunk thing going on, I was always like, she just needs to change one or two pieces here and she'll be a top star. And I was even there a couple times, like sitting at the same table when she was talking with people in creative about ideas for, you know, like really making this character work, and seeing how hard she was thinking about it and trying things. So yeah, I knew it would happen. And I was even backstage the night when her face got all bloodied, and I was standing there with the head of consumer goods, and turned to him and I'm like, well, there's your new top star.
That was an amazing episode.
Yeah. It was something being there for that.
It kind of made her, like, that went viral. Like
not even kind of, it did.
It did. Yeah. It's an amazing episode. And Hulk Hogan.
Giant hand. When I shook his hand, I was like, wow, massive hand. We didn't have a lot of interaction.
Yeah.
Although one time I was backstage when he was doing a promo, and, you know, like his body's beaten up. That's no secret. And so he was, you know, kind of like slowly walking up, and he was doing something with Renee Young. And the producer went over the bullet points with both of them, and he was like, all right, brother, I got it. And then as soon as that red light came on the camera, boom, like 80s Hulk Hogan appeared, hit every single one of those bullet points naturally. It was really awesome to see. Without getting into it too far, it's too bad my opinion changed of him afterwards. That's all pretty public,
Okay.
but we don't need to get into it too far.
Steve Austin.
Wished my wife a happy birthday in person. So tremendous dude by my reckoning.
He seems like a great guy, like with all the
Yeah.
podcasts he does.
Yeah, and I brought him a local Kansas City beer. I was doing a SummerSlam thing. I was working on a charity painting for Connor's Cure, and my wife and I went in to meet him, you know, back in the green room for the thing he was doing, and, you know, did our thing with the painting for the charity, and then, you know, gave him the gift basket of the beer. And my friends had warned me ahead of time, like, if he goes to clink that beer with you, you're going to get kicked in the gut and get a stunner. But it happened to be my wife's birthday that day, and he wished her a happy birthday there, and set a long tradition of doing amazing things for my wife on her birthday that are getting harder and harder to top. Like a couple years later, we what was it? Got like third row seats for Smashing Pumpkins, like in the center. And then I think the next year we were in New York for a private Snoop Dogg concert. You know, all through the world of wrestling. And so this year with the pandemic, I don't want to say like or anything, but it's like, well, I don't have to figure out what to do this year to top it. It gives me a little longer to plan something out.
I just have a few more. Ric Flair.
Ric Flair. genuine, and really passionate about Charlotte's success. Yeah.
The Ric Flair
Everything
we
that you
see
see
on
on screen
TV.
is genuine.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the exact same way with her backstage.
Dwayne Johnson.
Haven't met him. He was my first favorite. Like back when I first started watching. I got to have breakfast with his mother once, Ada,
Yeah.
and she is as lovely a human being as you can imagine. And she brought a photo album of him as a kid, and she's like, "And here he is when he's the Pebble instead of the
She
Rock."
likes that. She does it. She embarrasses
Yes,
him.
it's so lovely. It's so genuine. Yeah, coming from a woman like that, it doesn't surprise me, all the humanitarian work that he does. And like, I've become friendly with the woman that handles all the Make-A-Wish stuff for WWE. And the way that she glowingly talks about Dwayne Johnson and John Cena both. And occasionally Rock will let it slip out how he'll bring, Wish kids onto set and things like that. That's all very real, and it's a true passion to him, and that goes further for me than anything he ever did in the ring.
Same with John Cena, right?
Yes. Oh, John Cena with the Make-A-Wish stuff, because I've done things with Make-A-Wish here and there, and it's rewarding, but it is hard to see what those kids and those families are dealing with. It's very real. It makes everything else in the world kind of take second place, and that John did that so much. And I've seen videos that they don't show of how amazing John is with those kids and their families. Yeah, more important than anything else he ever does, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Shawn Michaels.
Wonderful signature. Beyond, like, there is a very solid argument for him being just the best at pro wrestling ever. There's a few of the old time guys, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, Ric Flair at the top of mind for me, that they put a lot of effort into their signatures and like just lovely penmanship. And because they want the signature to be a really special thing. If people are paying extra for that, they want it to be really worth something to them. And Shawn takes that approach with what he does. And yeah, little things like that from a business perspective, I really get into.
And of course, since I named Shawn Michaels, you know who I'm going to name next, Bret Hart.
I have not met Bret in person. We've had correspondence here and there. He has a couple of my paintings up in his house. But maybe the best at selling in the ring that there's ever been, which is the more that I've learned about the actual art form of pro wrestling, one of, if not the most important skills that you can have. What he would do to make his opponents look great is just tremendous. And so when he got to be in there with someone like Shawn Michaels, or especially with Kurt Hennig. Yeah. Oh, that final match with Mr. Perfect is a perfect match, because it was two guys that both made their careers on making their opponent look good, and they were able to tell just a wonderful story out there.
And of course, the uncle of Natalya Neidhart.
Yes, and man, she loves Bret so much, and I know it's reciprocated. Yeah.
Yeah. Triple H.
I call him my rabbi. He's the one that made the decision to bring me in. He and Steph both are so supportive of what I do. Make like special moments to catch up whenever time allows. Backstage, because they're both so dang busy, and they're there to make a TV show, not to talk to me. But those brief moments where you get to talk, it's not a work, right? Like they're being genuine. Also, I didn't know Paul Triple H's backup career, if wrestling didn't work, was to be a graphic artist.
Really? I
Which
didn't
is
know
like,
that.
yeah, isn't that amazing? He was in school for it even, and then the wrestling thing took off. So I think that helped out a lot with getting me in the door.
Is he good? Have you seen his art?
I haven't seen. I don't know that he, stays with it, but I know that he's, definitely involved with a lot of the things that they do visually, especially with NXT, of course. And he's definitely got an eye for it. Yeah, if you like my
That's
stuff, you like his taste.
also like Jerry the King Lawler and all his paintings, right? Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Jerry's got a big background, and of course Jeff Hardy too.
yeah. Last one, Vince.
I have not had a conversation with Vince. Our one in-person interaction was I was backstage at the Hall of Fame for the first Warrior Award because I had hand-painted Warrior's coat that he wore in his final appearance on Raw, and had worked with him quite a bit, and his family and his team. So when they announced the Warrior Award, I'm like, oh, I want to do something with this. And then they said it was for Connor the Crusher and the Mahalik family. And I'm like, who I had, I'd become friends with Connor's dad after Connor's passing. And so I reached out to WWE like, hey, could I surprise the family with a painting of Warrior and Connor together? And they're like, oh, that's great, would you mind doing it on camera? And it was real. Like I even heard the producer say that to when they were having their little meeting about it. He's like, okay, this one's real, like we're just gonna let this thing be what it is. And they had me like hide behind a curtain, and they were interviewing Steve and his son Jackson about the award after he had gone up to receive it. And then they, give me the cue, and I come out and give them the painting, and it was just amazing, right?
Amazing, yeah.
And there was the bright lights behind the camera, and anyway, I wasn't looking anywhere else. I was having this moment with the family, and then they turned the lights off, and standing there are Vince, Triple H, and Steph. And I'd only had interaction with Paul before that. So like Steph comes right up, shakes my hand, gives me a hug, thanks me. And Vince smiles and gives me a nod. And then he goes back to running the show. That's the only interaction I've had with him. That's enough.
Yeah.
But he does have one of my paintings hanging up in his conference room. I had done a painting of the McMahon family. So like Steph and Shane on back to Jess McMahon, Vince's grandfather. And Steph saw that, and she's like, Rob, you're not selling this to anyone else. I'm getting this from you. And this is my Christmas present to Dad. And
Awesome.
I'm like, oh, uh-oh, okay. So, I send it, and like I was having family Christmas with my wife and her family, and my wife turns to me and she's like, right now Vince is opening up his present from Steph, and it's your painting. And then I started getting like emails from the executives there that are like, wow, this is hanging up in Vince's conference room. So that's cool. And what I've heard is Vince likes it because he really is family oriented with his family. They really are, very genuinely close. Another thing about Vince that you're not going to see talked about, everyone wants to portray him as this, evil mastermind or whatever.
Business mogul.
Yeah. And, maybe to some people he is. I haven't had that experience. Also, one time I was backstage, and the general rule of thumb is if you see Vince coming, you get out of the way because he's running this show, right? He's this artist making his art out there. And, unless he needs to do business with you, don't interrupt him, because there's hundreds of other people that are needing him to do his thing. but if he sees any police officers that are backstage there, or any first responder type, he stops, shakes their hands, and thanks them for their service. That's cool. That's something he doesn't have to do. It's not expected of him, but he does it. Also, there's this little older lady in Dallas, Texas, that has worked that venue for decades as a security guard. Really just like sits at the door and makes sure people are where they're supposed to be, right? Everyone loves her. Like Undertaker will come up and give her a hug and, like catch up because like they have mutual friends, because Taker's from that area.
Yeah.
But like Vince will like hug her, give her a kiss on the cheek, thank her. He's like, I'm so glad to see you again. Little things like that don't make it out into the public spectacle that Vince normally puts around himself. Little cool things like that give me a deeper appreciation.
That's awesome. So what's harder to draw, Bret Hart's hair or Triple H's hair?
Bret's hair for sure. It's something about that black hair when it's wet, and like how it like the light glares off of it, because generally like the rule of thumb is you don't want to do every individual strand of hair, but the way that Bret's hair sits, Rollins is kind of similar as well. You have to do more detail than what would normally be like the rule of thumb for.
Rollins's hair at least isn't all black.
Well, now it is. Yeah,
well,
early on, when there was like the half that was dyed, and when he started growing that out, I asked him about it, and he like held his hair out to where like whichever side the blonde was on, held it out and just like broke off the tips. He's like, I can't do this to my hair anymore. Like all that bleaching, it just killed it. It was like straw.
Do you have a favorite painting that you did?
Emotionally, the one of Warrior and Connor together, everything around that, and how much it meant to the family, how much it meant to me making it. I actually painted it backstage because of the way the timing was from when I had approval to when I needed to get it done, and like a lot of the staff that came up and talked with me about it, and how much the Mahalik family means to them. That one's really special. On a technical level, this upcoming Oscar piece is the best thing I've ever done. So I'm really excited for people to see that.
And do you have anything you want to plug moving forward?
Well, obviously there's Canvas to Canvas, my weekly show on WWE's YouTube channel. It's kind of the Bob Ross of pro wrestling with less hair. They're like 2 to 3 minute episodes.
Yeah.
You get to see the whole process. I talk about it. I make those all myself. I'm pretty proud of that it's now I think coming up on the 326th episode. It's the longest running original show on WWE's YouTube channel ever. And it's, I think, lapped twice the second place show.
Just like WWE Raw is the longest running episodic TV show.
And I tried to get cameos from my cats in every episode. So I joke about that Vince has made this $1 billion empire that I use to share cat videos. But a lot of people dig that. And then on social, I'm at Rob Schamberger. I'm sure we'll have that at the bottom here. And also, if you want to get the art, you can go to my website, robschamberger.com. Also, WWE Shop. You can get shirts with the art on it and prints. There's WWE Auction that has the prints signed by the superstars. And they just launched the WWE Legends Shop. So it's all the legends that they have working agreements with that we can do merchandise with. So I just had like 60 new t-shirts launched there, which is rad. And there's more stuff coming up there. Also, in November, there's a Target exclusive with that Ultimate Warrior figure with, they did a perfect recreation of the coat that I made for him for his final appearance. I'm excited just to have that in my hands.
You made that coat?
Yes, that's the one that's coming out. It's amazing. And through everything around that, there's more cool stuff coming up too. Yeah, a lot of cool stuff.
So how morbid was it the week after his final appearance?
Oh, just the day after.
Oh yeah, the day after.
Yeah,
and
like,
and the promo he gave too.
Yeah, because WrestleMania 30, WrestleMania Access, that was my very first appearance with the company publicly. I was painting live there and selling art, and then having him coming out wearing that coat, I was like, wow, everything is starting to snowball. This is amazing. Like, we watched WrestleMania from Warrior's box. Just getting there was amazing. Like, we were in a bus that had a motorcade through New Orleans. It was my wife and I couldn't believe what was happening. And then we were actually driving home on Monday, so we didn't get to watch it live. But like WWE puts stuff up on YouTube right away, and then people were freaking out, like, tweeting pictures of it to me that they took over their TV. And so like my wife was driving because I knew it was going to be happening during that time, and we're just both like crying, like just straight up crying that this moment is happening, right? And so we get home late, I don't know, 2 a.m, and so we just sleep all day. It was our first time really sleeping in about a week. If you've ever done WrestleMania Access, you know what I'm talking about. And so we're just sleeping, and we finally get up to watch Raw from the beginning. And we were at the commercial break before Warrior came out, and I get a text from Talent Relations, a friend there that knew what I had done with Warrior, and it just said Warrior died. And then there was someone else on the roster that sent me the same thing at the same time. And I like had to pause the TV, and I couldn't talk, right? Like, I couldn't process this. Like, the best moments of my life and the days leading up to that, and then this tragedy that hit him and his family, and the suddenness of it. And my wife was almost yelling at me, like, Rob, what is happening? I couldn't verbalize it to make it real. And I tell her, and we cry all over again. And then we watch the segment. And I was messaging with his team that I'd worked with on this project, and we were all dumbfounded. And quickly after that, that Hall of Fame night, there was a family photo of Warrior and Dana and their daughters that was actually the last family photograph of them taken. And so I painted that for them, and they've got that up in their dining room so that he's always there with them. Things like that makes it also real, and important, like in the moment. Ask me one more question, so we're not ending on this note.
What? I mean, if that's your first weekend there, I was like, welcome to pro wrestling.
Yeah. And like Warrior and I had it that I was going to be doing all his coats going forward. He was going to have a different one for every appearance, and he was going to be like a WWE ambassador, like out there doing the media circuits and appearances, and it's going to be like a new coat every time he was on TV. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like your wife is very supportive of what you do. Is she also a fan?
Yes. Yeah, here's a good story to end on. When we first started dating.
Yeah, let's end with this one.
Yeah. When we first started dating, you know, we were still getting to know each other. We had both come out of really bad long-term relationships, and we were kind of nervous, right? And so I was going to a Royal Rumble party at a friend's house, and I said, like, hey, it's a party, you know, these are all, you know, good friends of mine, do you want to come? And she's like, sure. And she told me, like, inside her brain, she's like, wrestling, whatever, you know. She's like, but I like this guy, let's, you know, like, I want to meet all of his friends. So we get over there, and um it was the 2006 Rumble. So like Ric Flair and Undertaker were both in that Rumble. And so there were like backstage promos with them beforehand. And she's like, wait, Ric Flair? And then like Undertaker, she's like, and it had like, it all came back to her at once that she had grown up watching wrestling with her dad. And she had just kind of forgotten about all of it, you know, because it was like when she was younger, and it would be like when she was over at his house like every other weekend or whatever. And like it all like came back to her hard. And she told me, like, growing up her very favorite wrestler was the Undertaker, but when we were watching this Rumble, it was her first time actually seeing him, because her dad, my father-in-law, is notoriously cheap. And so back then he wouldn't pay for the pay-per-views, but there was like a channel that you could turn to and you could still hear it. And so she grew up loving hearing the Undertaker wrestle. But she'd never seen him. And then you know, like shortly after that we moved in together, and I was watching, you know, Raw and SmackDown every week. And, you know, she, as soon as she saw Randy Orton and John Cena, she was on board for sure. And then, yeah. Then, you know, she started like getting into it. And then like her dad found out that she was watching it. And it turned out all these years her dad had been secretly watching wrestling and never telling her, right? Like, and so then they got like the closest bond of you know, their whole time over talking about wrestling. And like even when they do like photos with each of them now, they're like putting each other in headlocks and stuff. And then she found out like her dad reads the sheets, and he'll like text her to find out if a rumor's true.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then of course she's, you know, my biggest supporter, and at the events she's there working with me. If I show up backstage without her, I hear about it, especially from Maddie and from the staff. They kind of can't stand me on my own, but they love Katie. And yeah, getting to share this whole journey with her, and that it's, you know, it's for both of us, is amazing.
It's awesome. It's a great note to end on. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Appreciate this. Thank you.